One of the most common problems beginner backend developers face when writing an API is defining HTTP status codes correctly and consistently. See, status codes are not just random or generic numbers developers throw at clients. They're in fact crucial information about what actually happened on the server, and if you get them right, your API will become much easier to debug, document, and integrate with. So in today's video, let's explore 5 of the most essential HTTP status codes your API should use. Let's start with the one you've probably already used hundreds of times without really thinking about it, 200 OK. This status code is generally used in response to a GET request and indicates that the request was successfully processed by the server and that nothing new was created in the database. In this case, the message body of the response usually contains the data the client asked for or a simple confirmation message. Unlike 200 OK, the 201 created status code is used to explicitly confirm that the request was successfully processed by the server and that a new record or entry was created in the database. This status code is usually used in response to a POST request, and the response body typically contains the newly created resource or at least a unique URL or identifier that allows the client to know where and how to access this resource later on. Note that in RESTful APIs, for updates made through a PUT request, it is quite common to respond with a 204 no content rather than a 200 or a 201 and not include any data in the message body of the response. The 400 bad request status code is generally used by the server to indicate that the client's request is syntactically valid, but its data is wrong or incomplete. This usually happens when the request's payload breaks the API contract at the validation stage due to missing required fields or invalid data types or values. Now, a good 400 response shouldn't just say bad request. It should specifically tell the client what's wrong with it and how to fix it by including a list of field-specific errors, like for example, email is required or ID must be a positive integer. Another important status code you'll constantly use is 404 not found. It is used to indicate that the resource requested by the client cannot be retrieved by the server. This usually happens when the client sends a request to an invalid URL or attempts to retrieve a resource with an identifier that doesn't exist in the system, such as a file or a database record. It's worth noting that for a resource whose URL or unique identifier is changed, rather than just responding with a 404, the API should instead respond with a 301 move permanently, indicating its new location to the client. Finally, the 500 internal server error is a generic status code used to indicate that an unforeseen event happened on the server, preventing it from successfully processing and completing the request. This is often due to unhandled exceptions, database connection failures, null references, and pretty much anything else causing your code to crash or end up in an invalid state. For the client, this code implies that the problem cannot be fixed by simply changing the request, unlike a 404 not found would. Note that for security reasons, when using the status code, the response should only contain a safe generic error message like something went wrong and never reveal the specifics of what went wrong on the server. And here it is for today, guys. Now, if you want to go further than just status codes and actually learn how to build real-world APIs from scratch, you can check out my module called Build RESTful APIs in Node on learnbackend.dev. This module packages everything you need to go from a simple server to a structured RESTful API that applies these patterns in practice using MySQL, Sequelize, and Express. The link is in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Cheers.